closed to everyone in the center on Zoom, and happy traditional Mother's Day to mothers. I will be talking about a traditional Mother's Day because that's what it is, Mother's Day, but I will also be talking to you about mothering. So in saying that, as spiritualists and as mediums who want to bring to you the evidence, the facts, and the emotions and the sentimentalities, I'm going to start with a little bit of facts and information about Mother's Day that I didn't know. First of all, Mother's Day is celebrated in over 40 plus countries. And it's also a situation where it's not just in May, like we celebrate Mother's Day in the United States. It's in March in some countries on different days than obviously our traditional Mother's Day in the United States. Mother's Day in the United States actually only goes back to the early 1900s. So it's not that long a lived tradition in this country as it is in other countries where what I read was that it was multi-centuries that the tradition of celebrating mothers came about. So I read on about how this woman, Anna Jarvis, organized the first Mother's Day service, and it was at a Episcopal church in West Virginia. It now serves as the International Mother's Day Shrine. So if anybody's in that area and you want to look up where Mother's Day had maybe its first celebrations, that would be the place to go. Over the years, Mother's Day in the United States that I'm referring to now had been criticized because it became very, very commercialized, which is typical of celebrations of things, how they go from being sometimes a heartfelt celebration, a personal celebration, to almost over the edge celebrations. And in this case, it did, as early on as the 20th century, become what they considered to be too commercialized. And I can't even imagine what it's considered now if in the early 20th century was considered to be commercialized. But anyway, with that being the case, this woman, Anna Jarvis, had said that was never her intention. It was the intention to have it be a tradition of just honoring mothers and to let them know how much they meant to us as individuals, their children. So that became a little bit of concern that that's how people would look at the situation of this celebration as just a materialistic type of over the edge, you know. So in response to that, a woman by the name of Constance Adelaide Smith advocated for it becoming what she considered to be Mothering Sunday. And it was to commemorate, motherhood in many parts of an English-speaking world. So, okay, so it's, you know, basically not just the United States, but all of the English-speaking countries. So this is the Mother's Day I want to talk to you about now, because it then became called Mothering Day, which really, if we think about it in our lives now, in the period of time that we live, it's not just mothers who are doing the mothering. It's single fathers, it's grandparents, it's aunts and uncles, it's everyday friends who are a big part of our life. So Mothering Day actually, to me, sounds like the right way to honor all people who give of their heart, who love completely, and want to be there for other people with a love and a kindness that hopefully affects all of us in the world, you know, so it passes on down the line. Again, it doesn't have to be necessarily what we considered traditionally mothers, because you know what, mothers all came in different shapes and sizes as well. Some were very sweet and nurturing. Some were very, very busy with many children to raise and didn't have the individual time to necessarily, you know, truly pay close attention to each and every child. Some did not have the ability to show their emotions and their affections, maybe because of what they learned. So to open it up to everyone who is mothering and loving in a good way. And when I say mothering, I don't mean smothering mothering, I mean mothering, because I know that could be an interpretation too. So I thought about, when I think of my mother, or when I think of mothers, what are some of the words that I think of? Loving, caring, protective, influential, guiding, compassionate, intuitive, mindful, unconditional. And those truly are the words that stick with me as far as how I look at maybe my mother or other mothers that I knew who were there to help and guide me, but also to a father in my life at times, or my husband, or my children. So if we focus on the word mothering, it brings us to now the sentimentalities of trying to observe people and to listen. And I mean, I'm a big talker, but I'm also a really good listener. And I like to observe people. And over time, you start to see how people interact with each other. And it does really just make you feel so warm and so happy to be a part of watching these people as they flow through their lives. So mothering, that's what I want to talk to you about. I recently was in a grocery store, and there was a young man behind me who had a little one, toddler, in his wagon, who did not want to be there. And believe me, I remember those days very well, when you're trying to complete tasks and you've got a little one in tow, and all they wanted to do was be somewhere else, but you needed to do what you needed to do. So I looked at this young man, and I had quite a few things that were going on to the conveyor belt, or whatever you want to call it. And he had a few things, and a child who was very unhappy. And I turned around and looked at him and said, "Would you like to go before me?" You would have thought that I had given him the greatest gift that I could give anybody. He looked at me first in shock and then said, "Really?" And I said, "Yes." And I thought about that. I'm not his mother. It's not even somebody he knows. But at that moment, I gave him the caring and the attention, and just the thought that somebody else was looking out for him. Mothering, that's what it's all about. It's a form of mothering. So he went on, he did his grocery shopping. He was ready to leave, and he turned around and he said, "I don't know how to thank you." And I said, "You don't have to thank me. Have a good day." Because I knew that he was in panic mode as he stood behind me before he went in front of me. As he left, I could see that some kind of a stress was relieved by an act of kindness, an act of caring, an act of mothering. So now take it away from me, because this is not all about me. And I think about the times, and some of the people there may know who I'm talking about, or that person individually may know who I'm talking about, where I see an aunt who has just lost her brother, and she's there with her two nieces, and she's trying to make them feel better and care for them. And so she's in support of them, and she's loving them, and she's trying to do whatever it takes to make them feel better about the loss of their father, as she's trying to also feel better or have the compassion from them to help her through the loss of her brother. Again, she's not a traditional mother, but she is mothering those two girls to help them through a very difficult time in their life. I take it to my husband as we walked through an airport a couple of weeks ago, as I assured him I could pull my suitcase without any problem. But thank goodness he's 6 feet tall and a big guy. And he looks at me as I'm struggling and says, let me take it. And I'm like, no, I have got to be responsible for myself. And he said, well, you can be responsible now, but you're going to be in pain later. So let me take the suitcase. And I turned it over to him and I realized, what is that? It's mothering, it's caring, it's loving, it's attention to somebody else's needs. Again, all falling under the heading of mothering, not being a mother, but mothering. I look to my daughter who yesterday says to me, listen, for Mother's Day, why don't we end up going to see the new movie called The Book Club? Had Jane Fonda in it, and oh my gosh, Mary Steenburgen and a whole bunch of other people. And why is she taking me to this? Because she knows I love to laugh. And what does she love to do? Laugh along with me. So as we sat in the movie theater at 10 o'clock in the morning and laughed, what was I getting from her? Caring, attention, and a form of understanding what I needed the most. It's a form of mothering. It's all form of mothering. I like to think that we all observe people and that we see their goodness and we see their love and we see what they're willing to give to us and what they're able to give to us. And we're accepting of it because you know what? There's no greater kindness to somebody else than to accept what they have to give to you. So I think that's something that we all have to observe. So all through these experiences of watching other people in their mothering, you know, you realize to yourself that it doesn't matter whether you're a father, whether you're a mother, you're a child or someone's child, you're someone's aunt, you're someone's uncle, you're always mothering someone else, because if you care and you love, then the mothering comes naturally. So I find that to be very, very uplifting to know that even though my mother has been in spirit for 6 years now, almost 7 years, and I do miss her. I really still do miss her, even though she passed at the age of 98 and we can all say, oh, she lived a long life. It's never enough. When it's somebody you love, you're never willing to just say, well, long life. You want them to be with you forever. And they, of course, in our spiritual sense, they are with us forever. So, but the truth of all of this is that it's nice to know that even when our mothers or our fathers have passed from this earth, that there'll be somebody else that's going to take on that role of nurturing us and caring for us and mothering us. And I find that to be very, very uplifting, because there are so many times that I look to other people to help me through crisis, to help me through just days that aren't as uplifting as I would like them to be. And most of the time it comes in the way of my husband or my good friends back in New Jersey and my friends that I've met here in Florida. And I know that the mothering or the nurturing, the caring will never end. There will always be somebody doing that for us. And I want that to be something that I hold close to me forever. That as much as I could miss my mother from being next to me on this earth plane, there's always going to be somebody. I believe that she looks down and says to the person walking next to me, okay, she needs a little kind attention today, so please help my daughter on this given day. So that to me, again, is very uplifting. I recently was at a dinner in a restaurant with 6 other friends. So it was 8 of us together. Some of us are closer with each other than others are. And this is in Florida. So these are newer friends for me, not older friends, which you always have these special places in your heart for friends that you've known forever. These are newer friends. And we were sitting there, and we now at this age put men on one side of the table and women on the other, because basically we want to talk to our friends, the men want to talk to their friends, and we see our husbands and spouses, thank God, all the time. So that's why we do that. In sitting next to someone who I'm close with here, and sitting across from 2 other women, I was listening to a conversation that one of the women was going through about some personal things that were going on in her life that I'm not going to obviously share all of that. but about the fact that she was in a state of upset and worry and concern about a procedure she had done, where the doctor assured her that, okay, well, it's only 1 week after this procedure. Hopefully, this will get better. You'll start to feel better or whatever. And you could just see the anguish on her face, and you could see that she was not necessarily keeping the faith that things were going to work out the way she wanted them to work out. I turned to the friend to the right of me, and she reaches across the table and grabs the hand of the other woman on the opposite side of the table, who she happens to know, but they're not the best of friends. She looks into her eyes and says, "I have been through what you have gone through. Give it time. It's a week in. The doctor said maybe by 2 weeks you'd feel better." She said, "I didn't feel better for three weeks to a month. Just give it time. If you need to talk to someone, you can call me. They know each other. They do have each other's numbers. You can call me." But she continued to pat her hand and say, "It really will get better. I believe it will get better. And if it doesn't get better in the next couple of weeks, when you go back to the doctor, you're going to tell him that, and he's going to figure out the next thing to do for you." I watched the woman across the table's face go from this intense anxiety to a total relaxation as her hand was being patted and kind words were being said to her. And the whole demeanor of her face and her shoulders and her body changed. And I was able to watch that because I wasn't part of the conversation. I was part of the action, but not part of the conversation. And I saw how everything changed for her at that moment. Now, let's be fair. Everybody's life and everybody's body is different. Maybe in another week or another two, that woman might feel better, and maybe she won't. But for that moment, that person who was across the table from her, but next to me, reached out, held her hand, touched her, mothered her, cared for her, loved her. And when we all went about our ways, all left the restaurant, you could see what difference they made in each other's lives. So I guess what I wanted you to know today, and I know you all know it, and what I wanted you to take away from this is that our mothering is what so many people do for us, and we do for others. Being a mother, you can be somebody's mother, but that doesn't mean you're always loving and caring. Some mothers are, some mothers aren't, just like some fathers are and some fathers aren't. If we're lucky enough to have the blessings of very loving mothers and fathers, then that's wonderful. And I guess it can be hurtful when they don't measure up to what we think mothers and fathers can be. But what I think is lovely is that somebody will always take that place. Someone will always come along, whether it's a grandmother and a grandfather, an aunt or an uncle, a friend, a neighbor. Somebody will always come along to lighten our load, to give us some peace of mind, to pat us on the back when we need the pat on the back. And so today, as I leave you with these words, I just want to say Happy Mother's Day traditionally to all mothers, but happy Mothering Day to everybody who's been able to be loving and kind, even to whether it's a stranger or whether it's somebody that you know, but just to give of your heart and to show them that they matter in this world. And I think that's what we can be honoring on a day like today. And I want to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see many of you soon in person, and the rest of you lovely faces on Zoom. So thank you very much for listening.